Welcome to another episode of RIA Collective. My name's Charlie Van Derven, your host as always. And I got a cool guest today, like a guy that seriously, one of the coolest guys I've spoken to in preparation for these conversations. When I talked to him for our prep call, there was some snow up in the Northeast, and he had just come in from shoveling his neighbor's driveway. I don't think they're asking him to do this stuff. That's just the kind of guy that my guest today is, where he's really going out of his way to help others. Now, not only that, super thoughtful dude, right? We're going to hear about background today, where he came from, how he found financial services, and then finally how he brought himself to independence, which is a very cool story. And so I don't want to give away too much. And I got to quit talking because you can hear my voice is already shot for the day. But without further ado, my new friend and my guest today on RIA Collective, Dennis Huergo. Dennis's business is Wealth Enhancement Group out of Warren, New Jersey. Rain, snow, whatever it is, Dennis in the office taking care of his clients. And Dennis, dude, you're awesome. Really, sincerely, those things I say about our intro call, like you're a thoughtful dude. We were talking about theology and philosophy, and we got deep, man.
We really did. It was a short call, but we
Yeah.
got into all things that makes life beautiful and worthwhile. So,
Yeah. I'm going to start us where it starts, Dennis. One of the things you shared with me was that you've got this overwhelming feeling, and maybe I make it sound like it's a bad thing. I didn't take it that way, but you've got this level of responsibility that you put upon yourself, being a child of immigrants from Cuba, and I found that really interesting. In that it's not just about you, it's not just about your family, it's not just about your clients, but you're looking at generations to come.
yeah. Yeah. And that's the way my wife and I look at a lot of these things. It's when we're making decisions, it's not just for us. We're responsible for our aging parents who came here in their 40s and 50s and had basically no time or ability to set up retirement plans. And so we are the walking, talking retirement plans. And on the other side, talk about the sandwich generation. We've got the two little girls who are depending on us for us to make the right decisions and make sure they have as many opportunities as they can in life. Not a lot of room for error.
Yeah, that's cool. I dig that you take that responsibility, you take that very personally. And as a fellow dad of daughters, I can appreciate that, taking care of what's at home right now too. So let's go on the journey a little bit about finding financial services, right? You mentioned you were in the military and kind of didn't know where things were going after the military. Could have kind of become a cop or a firefighter or
As one does.
yes,
Something, a
as
job
one
as
does.
cool, as action driven
Yeah.
as an slave. But no, of all things, I landed in insurance and I'm thankful that I did.
Yeah, very cool. I'm going to bring up your first company
Mhm.
because you didn't, is Primerica and the crazy MLM model, pyramid scheme. Dennis, tell me about that experience. Now, I'll tell you what, I know a lot of people have come through Primerica and exited to start their RIA or to join a broker dealer or whatever that might be. So it couldn't have been all bad. I also know some people have done very well for themselves with Primerica.
Yeah, it's certainly an acquired taste, but I gotta say that the that company had great training, and that's because the RVP that ran the office really had the heart of an educator. Her name was Janice Moore, and she was awesome. She really took me under her wing and taught me a lot about not just how to sell insurance, but really the purpose, the value of what it means to families. And although it was a broker dealer, right, and there were like recruiting efforts and whatnot, conversations always came back to how do you help these people in the long term? How do you help your clients have safety, security in the long run? And so she pushed me to get my Series 6, pushed me to help people with opening up RIAs. And that was like very simple, straightforward planning. A buy term, invest a different, but it set me up for a good foundation. And really, just the focus on helping people was huge. My understanding is not every office is like that. Not every office is encouraging for the full licensing and whatnot. So I'm definitely lucky that we spent lots of evenings in the office prepping for the next day for meetings and whatnot, because a lot of us got out of work and then we would go to to the office to learn and prepare. So yeah, it was I got lucky. And I can say that about pretty much every place I've been. I've met at least one person that's changed my life for the better. And if you don't have anybody like that where you work, then you probably shouldn't be working there.
Yeah, that's the truth. And you appreciate that you call it luck, but that minimizes your role in that too. Some people, Dennis, seek that out and others do not. Right.
Yeah.
And here's what's interesting is I've got two kids, and one of my kids is super do actually both of them are, but one of them is super resourceful about the resource around them, starting college this fall. And that's an intimidating thing for anybody, but is already in the guidance counselor's office like the day she accepted her invite to go to the University of North Florida. But
That's awesome.
some people are super resourceful. And I've worked with enough people over the years to know that most people are not. So that you call it luck, but that's a credit to you, man.
Yeah, another way to say it, there's to your point, right? There's definitely a chip on the shoulder when you're an immigrant to the country, almost regardless of where you're from. The U.S. operates very differently from the vast majority of the world, and especially when it comes to money, right? So I remember my parents trying to make decisions with like super limited information, super nervous about the choices that they were making because one mistake would set us back incredible amount. And that daily uncertainty, the not knowing, that just becomes part of your life. So you start feeling the weight of not knowing the rules and not knowing things. And it can go one of two ways, right? You can either get bitter and resentful, or you can say, you know what, I need to make myself uncomfortable and try to learn more about. If I don't feel I'm making enough in this role, what do I need to learn to get another role or elevate myself within this same vertical? And I know we were talking about that last time, which is the putting yourself in an uncomfortable position because the discomfort is generally where most of the growth happens.
Yeah, you had mentioned you wanted to be the dumbest guy in the room. Now we don't want that to be
Not
for
always on
everybody, but
purpose.
yeah, that's the right. If you're that guy, that's the right room for you to be
Yeah.
in.
I again, this is one of those things where I do feel lucky because when I was in New York Life as an agent, I surrounded myself with just other advisors who were 10, 15 years ahead of me that were in that were doing way better than I was. And the things that they were talking about almost had nothing to do with the things that I learned at Primerica, right? Because it was different product suite, different type of clientele. A lot of them were already working with business owners. And so it wasn't so much by term invest difference, but look at all this other suite of things that we do. And eventually I was able to work with as an internal wholesaler on the life sales desk. And that sort of parlayed into working on the advanced planning with the advanced planning team because they needed somebody that spoke Spanish to say the exact same things, but just to folks in Monterey and in Cartagena and Medellin. And it was, it was a great experience. But in all those rooms, right, in all those areas, I was definitely the dumbest guy on the team for at least a good chunk of time. And I don't know, I just think that really helped me grow, right?
For sure, man.
That chip on your shoulder, like, hey, am I really doing this right?
Yeah,
Am I doing the best that I can for my clients, right? There are people, I'm in a position now where when I say something, it carries weight and it has impact. Do I know what I'm talking about? And that still to this day, I'll be talking about like a Roth conversion. And I'm like, am I missing something? Is there something I'm not seeing here? Do I know what I'm talking about? And if you're not asking yourself that, either you're very good at what you do or you might be taking a couple flyers.
yeah, yeah. Again, I think that's an exception to the rule, right? I think the fact that this stuff matters to you as much as it does is was a catalyst for the success you found. Let's dive into that because by all stretches of your time at Primerica, and then you brought up New York Life as the next stepping stone in your career, you had a successful thing going. What was it about this independent path that drew you?
Sometimes it's not really the things that you think are the catalysts that end up being the catalyst. I think it was a combination of feeling frustrated that I couldn't have the kind of relationship that I wanted with some clients because I had some really strict guardrails. Other people would say handcuffs on what you could do or not do, or what you could talk about or not talk about
Yep.
in every position that I was in, right? The things that I wanted to talk about, that I wanted to maybe focus a little bit more on became different. They became more advanced. But I think really the biggest catalyst there was just wanting to learn a little bit more and to be at the forefront of what I consider to be financial planning. And also listening to podcasts made a huge difference, and listening to just podcasts about successful financial advisors and what they did for their clients, and looking at what I was doing day to day and saying, those two things don't align. I want to be doing X, not Y. And what you consume in terms of media, what you pay attention to is what you become. And that's one of the things I think we were talking about in another. I think we were talking about Twitter, and, and
Yeah,
it's, yeah, if all you read is Twitter, you might be a bit bitter, but because there's definitely a lot of reasons to be. But what you consume, what you focus on, ends up being the direction in which your life goes. And for me, it was just falling right into listening to podcasts and shows about successful financial advisors, most of them who were independent RIAs. That's when I made the decision to, hey, if I really want to live this life. If I want to have this sort of career, I can't do it where I'm at. And so the game plan became, how do I stop complaining about where I'm at, and how do I figure out what I need to do to get where I need to go?
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think I probably say it on every episode or just about every episode, but financial services, fourth least trusted industry in the US. And I really think, and really the purpose, the reason the show exists is how do we highlight this movement to independence where you can have a more pure advisor client relationship that doesn't have the biases of products or quotas or things that come along with the types of roles you had prior to going RIA. Dennis, before we wrap, I want to ask you a couple questions that I like to standardize on our conversations. As you were making that transition, is there anything that you did particularly well, whether it be the ways that you kept the assets and moved assets over, whatever it might be? Is there anything you did particularly well that maybe at the time you didn't even know you were doing it? It was just like you handled this particular. And I'm going to ask you the flip side of that too. Be careful with your answer right now. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I focus on is what skill set do I not have that I need to have in order to be successful in that full service wealth advisory space. And for me, the answer was painfully clear, is I needed a CFP because I was working on the CLU already and being in that insurance space. And I said, if I'm gonna either develop a firm focused on comprehensive financial planning or just apply to work at one, right? I need to have the credentials. So for me, it became, how do I get to having the right skill set? And that was the certified financial planner credential.
Very good. All right. Flip side of that, Dennis. Was there anything you wish you'd done a little differently?
I yes, absolutely. So I and this is a double-edged sword, but because I came up through the sales route, I was always very comfortable being in sales positions. Now the crux of the issue is that sales roles tend to pay really well. So it became really difficult to detach my personality from my income, right? My feeling of personal success, the stewardship for my family, right, from that income. And going from being a wholesaler on an advanced planning team where you're writing very large bits of business, and then figuring out, how do I jump over to being a financial advisor, a true financial advisor where I'm more focused on service rather than sales. I had two jobs in between that were still sales focused because I couldn't let it go. Every time I saw a posting on LinkedIn or somebody said, "Hey, there's so and so is hiring," and I looked at the two roles, what were the junior advisors making, the power planners, and what were the salespeople making? And I let my ego get the best of me there and went with the sales route. Now, I work with folks who are 10 years younger than me, 15 years younger than me, and they are absolute savages when it comes to financial planning because they came in the right way. And that was early on, as soon as they thought that this was going to be a career for them, they became an operations associate, then a power planner, then a junior advisor. And now there are some areas where, I'll still dominate, but on a vast majority of them, they will wipe the floor with me. And I'm so happy that they're on my support team and not competing with me. So if I could do it again, I would just cut right to the chase and say, what leads to being a lead advisor faster and most importantly, a stronger lead advisor, right? And that's coming up through the different planning roles and whatnot. Now, if you already have your own firm, it's a different story, right? But for those who are a little bit earlier career and you want to be a wealth advisor, you can always do sales after.
Yeah.
And I would argue you'd be better at sales if you're really good at the financial planning element of it because you know
Sure.
exactly what problem you're solving. So that I wish I would have done that a little bit sooner, is gone right into a planning role as opposed to get distracted by the shiny object that is a sales plus commission.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's hard to deny that kind of income, right? Or those kind of opportunities anyway, if you're good at your job.
Yeah.
Dennis, before I let you go, I want to just ask, most of our listeners are people who are maybe in the same role you were prior to making your leap, that are thinking about what does this look like, hearing from people who have done it before. If anybody wants to reach out, would you mind being a resource to our listeners?
Absolutely.
All right, cool, man. What's the best way to reach you? What's Wealth Enhancement Group? I didn't write down the URL. What's the website address?
Wealthenhancement.com is
Oh,
the
good URL.
address. Yeah. So
Good
right
URL.
to the point.
Yeah,
So exactly
exactly.
straight to the point. And my email is just dhuergo@wealthenhancement.com.
All right, awesome. Dennis Huergo, man, I'm glad we're connected. You're doing it right. You've got the right intent. I love your drive, your willingness to be uncomfortable, understanding that's where growth is happening. Yeah, Cool, man. I'm glad that we're connected, and thanks for being a guest on RIA Collective.
Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Of course.